Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Ruben.
Welcome to our new studio.
Thank you. What a wonderful day to arrive. Goodness gracious. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo. How's everybody doing?
Welcome back.
Hey, this is fun. It's me.
Independence.
Look at that. Happy Independence Day to you all. We just landed this morning, and I'm so happy that we got here this morning so that I could be in the studio with you all.
Wow.
Well, firstly, let me tell you what's happening around the world. Well, let's begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where former President Joseph Kabila has been sentenced to death in absentia by the country's military court. Now, Kabila has been convicted of war crimes, of treason and crimes against humanity in a case that stems from his alleged support of the M23 rebels who are backed by Rwanda in the eastern DRC. Now, Kabila, who led DRC from 2000 to 2018, I believe, has denied any wrongdoing. And he says that this judiciary process has been politicized. Now, Kabila did not attend the trial in person and was not represented by legal counsel. His whereabouts actually are currently publicly unknown. He had been spending most of his time in South Africa since 2023, but appeared in the rebel-held city of Goma in eastern DRC back in May, if you remember that. Now, still staying with African stories, but this one has a slightly wider context. We have Nkosina Umtetwa, who is South Africa's ambassador to France. Unfortunately, it has now been reported that he has fallen to his death in Paris. Now, he fell from the 22nd floor of the Hyatt Regency hotel in the Port-Maillot district of the French capital, where he had reserved a room on that 22nd floor. It's reported that the security window of that room was forced open. Police were initially alerted about the ambassador's issues when his wife reached out to police when she received an alarming message from her husband. Now, he was 58 years old, and he had been the French ambassador since December of 2023, and he was also a senior member of the ANC, the African National Congress. This is, of course, Africa's oldest political party and the party which brought democratic rule to South Africa. Now, he himself was an ally of former South African President Jacob Zuma, and he was unfortunately implicated in this infamous state capture inquiry, which looked into the high-level corruption during Zuma's time in office. So we are still awaiting updates to find out what actually happened and what has instigated these unfortunate events. Let's move very quickly onto our newspaper headlines across Nigeria. As ever, we begin with the front page of This Day. This day leads with, of course, our president on this, our 65th independence anniversary, saying that we have turned a corner and that the worst is finally over. Now, he listed 12 remarkable economic milestones achieved in the last 2 years. The paper does go on to show Tinubu's building blocks for a greater Nigeria. There's 12 of them there. I would implore you to read them. President Tinubu, as well as his First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. We've got the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, a host of governors, including Lagos State Governor, Ogun State Governor, as well as representatives from the NGE, PANDEF, have all joined to mourn the passing of our dear colleague, Somtochukwu Maduagu, who died following an armed robbery incident at her home on Monday. There's also news that this Dangote and Pengasan issue has reached a truce. The strike is to be called off and sacked workers are to be recalled. Now, if we take a look at the Punch this morning, we can see that the resounding line from President Tinubu's independence speech is that the worst is over. That's where we're seeing over and over again when we're looking at our newspapers. And if we take a look at The Guardian, The Vanguard, The Leadership, and The Daily Sun, all of them lead with that declaration that the worst is over. The question, though, is, does that really reflect your everyday reality today? Well, the Daily Independent does have Senate President Godswill Akpabio urging Nigerians to bear the discomfort of the federal government's reforms, as he assures that, the worst is behind us and that there's more prosperity ahead. Those are your Nigerian papers. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the papers and, of course, our well-briefed stories, and we take it from there.
That's very good, Femi. Collabo. Real quickly, as regards what's happening, I think this is a long feud between Felix Tshisekedi and Kabila. We all know what transpired. We even know how Kabila came into Congo after his father wrestled power, Laurent Kabila wrestled power from Mobutu Sese Seko Kukungenu Wazabanga.
What a name.
As it was famously called with all his titles. And since then, he has stayed longer in power. And finally, where they had the first agreement when Felix Tshisekedi came in, Joseph Kabila was still holding the ace. In fact, it was said that he didn't even allow Felix Tshisekedi occupy the presidential palace when Tshisekedi came in. So they had this squabble until Tshisekedi gained the National Assembly and gained the leader of the National Assembly. So once he gained the leader of the National Assembly, now he has started destroying the political structure, like they call it in Nigeria, of Kabila. And this is another part. Yes, allegations Kabila went, down to Goma, supported M23, but this is a level of high-handedness and it's got a political slant to it. He's been sentenced in absentia.
Yeah.
Let's say it pans out. What this will just make Kabila do is, he too will also regroup, get his own political surrogate in town. It's going to be a wrestle for power. If they can also push Tshisekedi out, then all of that, will be done away with. Definitely. It's a very sad story that is happening in South Africa as we speak. An ambassador, in fact, the French authorities are saying probably there's a plausibility of suicide, but we have not seen the holistic investigation in the matter. A man plunging from that height down. And I know too much about things like this because I had a dear friend too that died, from his apartment just like that plunged himself down. And that's why mental health matters a great deal.
Absolutely.
We must talk to people. We must interact with them. Because you see people high fly. This man has served in different capacity as minister in South Africa. Because you see people out there as high fly does not mean that everything is okay with them mentally. We just, empathize with his wife and family members and the government of South Africa at a point in time like this. And let's see the end of the investigations. Indeed,
indeed, indeed. Well, Ayo, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know that we don't have much time, but Ayo, what do you think about our World Brief stories and our newspaper stories?
All right, so no surprises there with what happened in DRC. We'd actually talked about this when we talked about it was the first of its kind, whereby he was tried, that's Joseph Kabila, was tried in absentia. He didn't have any representation, he didn't show up in court, and now he's been sentenced, and it's going to have the Article 7 of the military code, which is the death penalty. That's what they're saying, and then he also has to pay $50 billion as compensation as part of his indictment. But beyond that, it's the politicization of the entire matter. Whether or not he was found guilty of it, what he's also said is that it's all politics. When Tshisekedi came into power, they enjoyed a close relationship. We've analyzed that close relationship, and when things fell out, it was accused of having a hand in the M23, in backing M23, and so part of his murder, sexual violence, and a few other things are some of the things he's been accused of. But beyond that also is what's happened in France with the South African ambassador to France. Actually, his wife did say that he had sent a text to her around 4:30 p.m. She had declared him missing. So that's why the French authorities are suspecting suicide. At the moment, that's what they suspect very strongly. But they have said that they will do a thorough investigation to ascertain and even ask the Hyatt Regency Hotel where he passed away, for their cooperation in identifying what could possibly have happened to this man. I think, like you said, Rufai, absolutely correct. Beyond just the cause of death is also the cause behind his decision to take his life, if that's eventually what the conclusion is. His wife does think so. She said that part of the text message he sent to her was that he, a very strange text message, and part of it was that he was going to take his own life. One headline story, and I just wanted to reiterate that on Daily Independent this morning, is Chief Anab Saraigbe talking about the fact that we don't know what IBAS has done with our money, and it's to call again for an accountability of what the sole administrator of Rivers State in the last 6 months did with the monies allocated, at least that he was able to spend. I think in the interest of democracy, fairness and openness, Nigerians and Rivers people in particular deserve to know how monies were spent.
Indeed. Thank you, Ayo. Dr. Reuben, love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, with diplomat Inter Mtetwa, who was said to have plunged to his death from a 22-floor story in a hotel in Paris. I had to tell, they said. I think the basic thing to recall is what the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, 1961, says. which is that states, host countries, have a responsibility to pay attention to the personal safety of diplomats and to ensure that they are secure. And it is in this regard that it is important that the French authorities have said that they are carrying out investigations to find out whether this was a case of homicide, the point having been made that the security doors in that his apartment were left open, or whether this was a case of suicide. So at this moment, we cannot jump to any conclusions until those investigations are concluded. And we hope that as the host country, faithful to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, France will respect its own obligations in international law and will not jump into any conclusions. As for the situation in the DRC, former President Kabila now being sentenced to death in absentia. Now, the military prosecutor, General Litulia, had made this very clear when the trial started in July, that in fact the prosecutor, the military prosecutor, was going to seek the death penalty. And what happened is that when Lieutenant General Katalai was reading his judgment, he said there was only one option available under the laws of the DRC, Article 7 of the Military Penal Code of the Democratic Republic of Congo, namely death sentence. However, what we see in display here is, politics in Africa. This, politics of hate, of vengeance, of vendetta among African leaders. The government of Tshisekedi haven't made it clear that they believe that Kabila, Joseph Kabila, who succeeded his father in 2001 and who used to be a friend of Felix Tshisekedi, is the one that is behind the M23. And that in fact is not even a citizen of DRC because of his association with Rwanda. Rwanda that have been accused of having a hand in the crisis in the DRC. So is this a case of vendetta? However, Joseph Kabila, being in absentia, has the option of going on appeal. And his political party, which had been suspended in May, at the same time that his immunity was revoked, is also saying that this is a case of political persecution and the judiciary is being used. You had a story about the Dangote refinery and Pengassan and Nupeng. Well, the Ministry of Labor and Productivity has issued a statement that, okay, labor rights are inviolable, people can form, associations. Two, that those persons who were redeployed and sacked, they should remain in the employment of Dangote refinery, either they are taken to Dangote Sugar or they are taken elsewhere. But the bigger issue is about the role of labor unions within the dispensation. People have cited the example of General Abacha in 1994. People have cited the example of Margaret Thatcher in Great Britain. How do labor unions sabotage the development process? So these are issues that the administration will need to look at. The Industrial Court has already ruled against Pengassan and Nupeng. Now, this is a democratic dispensation. Can we pursue the option under a democratic dispensation of what the law courts say? Because at the end of the day, as you have pointed out, it's the people of Nigeria who may likely suffer with this kind of problem that we have. However, Dangote Refinery, we understand, has reached a deal with NNPC, a 2-year deal, Naira for crude or crude for Naira. And of course, the Dangote Refinery will soon be exploring its own crude oil in OML 71 and OML 72. All of that will come into play. But our interest is, as Nigerians, is what is paramount. Thank you very much. Adufemi Akinson.